So in this video, we're going to be talking about PTSD. Now, I don't know anyone that's actually talked to me about PTSD in detail. My dad has it, but he and I don't talk very much. I don't get along with my father. Since I don't know a whole lot about it, I'm going to be reading from a website about post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm going to be adding some insight on it, of course. I'm just going to dive right in as always, but PTSD makes it difficult for someone to communicate. Obviously not in the same way that someone who has a stutter can't communicate, but they tend to not want to talk about their experiences, and I feel like that should be obvious. If someone with post-traumatic stress disorder opens up to you about their trauma and what caused them to get it, take them seriously. Don't make fun of them. Don't be like, oh, well, that shouldn't have traumatized you, because that's ignorant, okay? That's extremely ignorant. Many survivors can't find the words to express what they're feeling when they're thinking about it, when they're having an episode, whatever you want to call it. It can be very hard to describe. There's elements of shame, fear, anger, guilt, and grief often gets in the way of a calm and forced discussion that's focused. Think about if you've ever lost a family member, and tell me how easy it is for you a day after their funeral to talk about their passing and what they meant to you. Words can't describe it. It's the same way with this. Friends and family and anyone else who is not the source of the post-traumatic stress disorder but is standing by while someone attempts to heal need something that translates the PTSD language. Armed with knowledge and insight and awareness, that shit might help you better understand the person you're talking to. So I'm going to list a few things that will help. Knowledge is power. Okay, understand the process of a triggering event, the psychic reaction to trauma, the warning signs and symptoms of PTSD, and available treatment options for PTSD. Knowing all of these things allows you to help recognize, support, and guide your PTSD loved one toward diagnosis, treatment, and healing. Say something like, we need you to be clear-headed. I said that wrong. We need people who have PTSD, not me, but they need people talking to them to be clear-headed, pulled together, and well-informed. Alright? Trauma changes us. After trauma, you want to believe that life can return to the way it was. That the people suffering from this disorder can continue as who they were. Okay, that's not how it works, though. Trauma is trauma. It leaves a huge, insane impact on your soul, and it's not possible to endure trauma, and it's not something you can go through without experiencing a shift in your mind. Think of it this way. If someone beat you within an inch of your life, okay, you would not be able to see that person without becoming terrified. You would not be able to handle when somebody moves towards you too quickly. You're going to flinch. You're going to be even experiencing flashbacks, and that's not something that's pleasant at all. You need to understand that PTSD hijacks people's identities. One of the largest problems with the disorder is that it takes over their entire view of themselves. They don't see clearly anymore. They don't see the world as they experienced it before trauma. Now, after the trauma, every moment is dangerous, unpredictable, and threatening. You need to gently remind them and offer opportunities to them to engage in an identity outside of trauma and PTSD. don't look at them as their disease. And that's something I will say every time there's a mental illness video I bring up. Do not ever treat someone as they are their disease. They're no longer grounded in their true selves. In light of trauma, people's real selves retreat, and a coping self emerges to keep them safe. Okay, they can become closed off. They can become angry, bitter, sad, any number of things, but they are going to be changed. They're not going to be the same. Believe in them. Okay, their true selves are still in there. Even if they are momentarily buried, you have to be strong with them. They can't help how they behave. Since they're operating on a sort of autopilot, they're not always in control. PTSD is an exaggerated state of survival mode. Okay, they experience emotions that frighten and overwhelm them. They act out accordingly in defense of those feelings that they cannot control. So you need to be patient with them. They often can't stop the anger, the tears, or other disruptive behaviors that are so difficult for regular people to endure. They can't be logical. Since their perspective is driven by fear, they don't always think straight, nor do they always accept the advice of those who do think straight. So keep reaching out, even when your words don't seem to reach them. You never know when they will think of something that like a normal person said, and it will comfort, guide, soothe, or inspire. Okay, it's the golden rule. It's something that everybody knows. Treat someone kindly, and it will make their day. It'll make them smile years later when it pops into their mind. And yes, it does stick around that long. They can't just get over it. Just like no one can get over depression. PTSD is something that's hard to imagine. Okay? From the outside, it's easy to imagine a certain amount of time passes and memories fade and trauma gets relegated to the history of life. But unfortunately, with PTSD, nothing fades. Their bodies don't let them forget. Because of surging chemicals that reinforce every memory, they cannot walk away from the past any more than a brother can walk away from a sister. Honor their struggle to make peace with the events that happened, okay? Don't rush them. Trying to speed them into recovery will only make them cling to their problem more. Now, they're not in denial. They're coping. It takes a tremendous effort to live with PTSD. Even if they don't admit it, they know there's something wrong. When a normal person approaches them and they deny there's a problem, that's really code for I'm doing the best I can. Taking the actions that I would suggest would require too much energy for them. It divides focus from what is holding them together. Sometimes simply getting up and continuing their daily routine is the biggest step towards recovery that they can make. We can alleviate their stress by giving them a safe place in which they can find support. Understand that they don't hate us. They don't hate regular people or people without PTSD. Contrary to the ways they might behave when someone intervenes, somewhere inside they do know that we are not the source of the problem. Unfortunately, in the moment, they may use our face as the PTSD's image. Since they cannot directly address their PTSD issues, sometimes it's easier to address the person in front of them. Continue to approach them. They need you to. They need the people around them to be patient and strong. Okay? And your presence matters. Remember that. PTSD creates a great sense of isolation and loneliness, and in their post-traumatic state, it makes a difference to know that there are people who will stand by them. It matters that although they lash out, it matters a big deal that we don't respond and aren't... I'm messing up my language again. It matters a lot that although they lash out and they don't respond and they're not themselves, we are still there no matter what. Okay, don't give up on them. PTSD is something I imagine is like... It's like my childhood, okay? I was abused growing up, and I mentioned that in a former video. You need to understand that these kind of things don't go away. Stay beside them. Don't give up. Things that I'm repeating over and over again, because that's what you need. You need patience, and you need to be steadfast, because they know that you aren't the reason that they're suffering, but you're there, and the event isn't there. They can't lash out at an event that is no longer happening. Alright, stay strong to those who are suffering with PTSD. As always, remember that you are not your disease, that you are strong, and that you can keep living, and that you can smile. Okay, don't forget that everything in life is still worth living, even though you suffer, even though these events take control of you. When you have control, remember that you can still smile. Alright, and that's my video.